Yes, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Digital Fashion Innovator Series today. My name is Marie Bastian. I'm the CEO and founder of World of Mesh, and I'm your host for today's session. And yeah, this new era of digital fashion is bringing together so many amazing talents from all around the globe, and we are here to share their stories and to inspire a whole generation of new digital creators coming up, as well as the fashion industry at large. And yeah, we had some amazing sessions in the past. Today we have another really juicy topic for you guys. It's about leading through change. And just a little information, all our speakers are speaking on behalf of themselves and not for the companies they work at. And if you have any questions during this session, I know there's a lot of people that signed up. I think we were like by 280 this time even, so cheers for that. We'd love to hear all your comments as well. So come join our session, write questions or just comments or thoughts, and please share them with us because we'd love to hear what you're thinking. Awesome. So with that said, I'd like to welcome our guest for today, Orla Coulter. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much. And I want to just start off by saying I am a huge fan of what you have put together, Marie. I think it is so important as we go into the era of Web3 that we have this platform for learning and upskilling for new people that are interested, but also have a space for the digital natives to showcase what they have.
Yeah.
And totally all of your last speaker series with Paola and Nova, and obviously having really great connections, and a super fan of Daria Bond, old colleagues like Jackie King. I just think this is such a great workspace that you have created. And thank you so much for inviting me to today's session.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for that feedback. Oh, it really goes straight to the heart because there's all this hard work that goes into this, not only from my side, but from everyone who's joining, from your side, from all our previous guests. So thank you so much for that feedback. That's really highly appreciated.
Yeah. Like every session that I watch, your passion just absolutely shines through. And it's great to have ambassadors like yourselves that really continue to promote this.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Really means the world to me. Thank you so much. Yeah, and in these sessions, after getting a little feedback from myself, I'd love to turn it over to you and start off our session as we always do with a quick introduction of yourself. Tell us a little bit, about who you are, what you're doing, and how you actually got into this digital fashion era would be great.
Sure. Top level, I would say working for Adidas nearly 8 years, and I cannot believe that I'm saying 8 years because it has been a roller coaster and probably one of the best journeys of my life. I am the most privileged person I could say to work, and I'm probably being a bit biased, but with the best material developers, product developers, pattern makers, with my role as senior director, focusing on category training and working with the Center of Excellence in Bras and Tights, specializing in 2D and 3D product development. And for me, I would say, my journey to date, I would say through the lens of every other traditional kid up until I was 16, I got my GCSEs, and I would say not being traditionally book smart, I went through the lens of a more practical course where I studied art and design, which went through the layers of fine art, sculpture, fashion design, and photography. And
so your creative background you're coming from, highly creative.
Yeah, I would. Maybe. I think in my final semester, I honed in on fashion design, and then I came at a crossroads where it was: do I go down the avenue of fashion design, or do I go down to what I really like is the ingredients of fashion design. So I decided to go down the avenue of clothing design and technology, where you have the ingredients of understanding materials and what they do, understanding pattern, understanding product development and the R&D life cycle, and then going through as far as manufacturing and what it takes to build into manufacturing. Studied in Manchester for 4 years, and then I would say after that I spent 10 years in roles like production assistant, garment technologist, buyer, merchandiser. But
Wow.
I always had a clear passion for product development. And one of the great aspects about the industry is that it took me into like countries, Asia, Europe, Australia.
Lots of traveling.
And like I said, not a traditional book smart person. I learned all of my experience on the job, sitting in factories, sitting in offices with agents, and understanding and learning as I was going through my career. And that, I think, took me up into, I would say, for the last 10 years of my career, I really focused into lifestyle sports products. And then, as they say, I came home to Adidas, and one of the greatest companies in the world. They open the door for you and you work in different areas. And I think, I started off with a global project in manufacturing and education. And then the next door that came open was digital. And since then, I would say I just became the biggest fan. And not being an expert in it, I built myself a team around me of experts that educated me. And we took this journey where we held hands. We didn't know if we were doing the right thing. And this is where I met you. And we had a huge different dynamic of people and culture.
Yeah.
Really brought us to a level where we production and apparel manufacturing.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that having the study background is great. I mean, it's good to have that, that knowledge and education, but the real ins and outs of the jobs you learn when you're hands on deck, when you're in the job. You learn all these soft skills that are so important. You learn all these processes, how you actually see how it's actually happening and being made, the garment, instead of just a theoretically part of it. So I totally love that you had this like full circle round view on the product, actually, from going all these different areas. From you took you saw the factory side of it, the garment construction, you said the sourcing as well, and a lot of other stops you mentioned along the way. So that's super nice. I think that's the way to go, to have that journey of a full understanding of how the business actually works.
Totally. Like I have to say, education, going through university is a really great chapter into, I would say, the working world. But the things that you learn in a factory and in a space and a working environment like a company the size of Adidas, you definitely open new doors and understand in very different angles the way things really work.
Exactly. And also big shout out to anyone out there who maybe wants to get started in this industry and doesn't have that background and don't feel insecure about it.
No.
This is also actually a great time to jump in, because working in digital and fashion is so new to even people that have a long history of education, that have been in the industry for years. This is where everyone can jump in and start with together as a team. So just want to make a little shout out to everyone out there.
Yeah, and I think that is absolutely so important. I mean, working at Adidas as well, I have to say I have the privilege of working with the most diverse, dynamic people.
Yes.
And in my leadership roles, I have seen myself working with generation baby boomers, generation XYZ, and every person's vision and view is integral to building a digital ecosystem. And what I have experienced in my time working with these people is that you can see the traditional side of product development, where you can see people more focused on craftsmanship and physical garments. And then you see the digital native and the new generation come in, where they focus on the digital asset and how it is, when you compare it to the physical side, they come through in two different angles, but each aspect and each vision is super critical to how we build that landscape.
Absolutely. And I think that makes the best team, right? The ones that have the biggest contrast in their skill sets and their personalities and everything. If you have everything covered, I had also the pleasure to be in a super diverse team that had exactly this amazing setup. And you knew that you can depend on someone else, someone who's good at speaking and presenting. They're the ones can go forward for the team present stuff. The other ones that really love going into detail and exploring can go into that area. The more physical orientated people can stay on physical products. So just like you said, that makes really great teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, when I think about how, we had tasks of, given a really blank canvas to how to build this digital landscape to ensure that we could bring a product end to end digitally, but make sure that we had the credibility and product excellence in a mass production phase to ensure we cater for our consumers, was super important with the people around me that built this ecosystem, because you have the tradition of the craftsmanship with the vision of the digital asset and the new. And I think what was important to make sure that we built this was that we sat down from the very beginning to ensure that we really understood, first of all, what were people thinking? What were their fears? What were their joys in terms of what they thought that they were capable of doing? And what was very transparent was that there was no one person that was a complete super user, no one person that had the traditional versus the digital. And what I seen when we went through this project was this very organic formation of these two sets of people. When you put them into an environment, whether it's an office space or into a space, where they could be complete polar opposites in personality, but when they are in a situation that is very agile, when they are working towards a deadline or a production timeline, you could see a combination of people on the job training each other, and as they went along, upskilling each other. I think what was important to me was also, and I think we sometimes lose ourselves in this, that it's okay to fail. Failure is a good thing.
Amen. Yes.
Feel hard, feel on, like, with the biggest problems, because it's only then that we learn from them. It's only then that we can then build something more robust. And I would say, like, the connection that I see in teams today is when we go into either, a new software up, or we're trying to pilot something new, I am always with my team where I'm like, hit it hard, make sure it breaks, destroy it, because it's only then that we can build ourselves something robust that is sustainable and has longevity to last.
Absolutely. Like the failure culture that actually doesn't really exist in the traditional fashion world, because everything's like so scheduled and has to work perfect on time to meet the milestones, is a completely different when you get into digital. And I love that you mentioned that. because the more mistakes you make in the beginning, you won't have them later on. And when you're building these first iterations of systems or processes or whatever you're working on, you want to get all those failures in place so you can solve them, so you know they don't happen later on, and when you're fine tuning everything, right? Super good point.
Absolutely.
Lovely. So maybe I can get back to you mentioned also that when we're talking about the team setups, that you're also working with a lot of different team members and different team setups. And today's topic is also leading through change. And we really wanted to also focus on, the generation gap that we're having in this industry, because I think that's a huge topic. And I love that we're talking about that today. So you touched point on a little bit, but maybe you could also share a little bit your view on how you're experiencing this new generational change that's happening within our industry.
Yeah, I mean, we always go through a level of fearing change, and I always feel like change is a good thing, and change is something that we absolutely need to embrace.
Yeah.
When we talk about the cultural gap, as I said in the beginning, it is so important to have all of the layers of understanding, because it is only then that you see different points of view. And I think the more diverse a team is, I would say the more robust your infrastructure is going to be. For me, we always need to look into where is the opportunity when we try to close this gap. And it's always about utilizing the skill set that the people have and how we can then bridge it, whether it's through trainings, on the job trainings, sending them off on courses, working specifically with the software providers. Again, making sure that there is no fear culture, and to say, I don't like this. This isn't working. I've screwed up. That's the way we start to bridge this. It is only if we work together with these two types of skill sets that we will win in the fashion industry to leverage digital creation. I think it's always about a journey of the unknown that we have to take together to ensure that we can really take everyone along to build an understanding of what the capabilities of digital is.
I love that, because we do need the traditional know-how, right? It's the physical side of business is not going anywhere, even though brands are focusing on digital-only garments. But we're always going to need clothes to wear in the physical world, and those skill sets are equally valuable. It's both really definitely needed in developing a new process. So I love how you said that. But when we're talking about this generational gap, what we mentioned. Are there any ways that we can also bridge these gaps? Like, are there any commonalities that we can find, or ways how we can bring also not only these skill sets together, but also especially the way of working, like a traditional work environment versus a digital one? I mean, there's so many different topics that come from both worlds. Do you have any examples how we can bridge those worlds actually?
I mean, whether it's a physical space or a digital space, we need to foster a culture of inclusion. We need to bring everyone on the journey. It doesn't matter what their skill set or capability is. We all have to open the door while we go into the era of Web3. There is something there for everyone. For me, we always need to look through the lens of continuous learning. It always has to be through up-to-date skill sets in terms of what is the latest software that's coming out, what is Coulter offering us, trying to understand what other emerging technologies can we build on what we have already existing, and also bringing the traditional aspect into the digital culture, because you will always have that, I want to say, like, emotional connection with a garment. And we might have this in the future, but today we still don't have that connection. So we still need to bring aspects of tradition, but we need to also ensure that we embrace and bring the humanity side of it into our digital era.
Absolutely. And also, when you're talking about, I'm just remembering that in our last conversation with Paola, that's one of the learnings I had, because a lot of people think also this new generation also loves to be in a digital world and is detached from everyone. And you see them sitting there with their phones and everything. Like, that's the picture that a lot of people have. But what I learned from the last conversation is that because there's so much in a digital world, they really value the connection, the human physical connection with their colleagues. That's also a great point. I think we can also bring in that both generations have in common, and I think that's a lot of big misunderstanding that people have about this new generation.
Absolutely. And I really recognize that aspect of human touch and sort of the connection point. I mean, that's something, like I said, whether it's in the digital or a physical world, we still need to keep that connection, whether it is like us talking on screen or talking in a physical environment. It's super important, I would say, for the development of people, for the development of product, but also the understanding of the surroundings and the culture around us. And I think, Paola was super, for me, opening my eyes as well, where it was very transparent that she had this time during COVID that was difficult for a lot of people, but also people embrace that there. So we need to be really respectful as well of how cultures are changing, how we're bringing in new dynamics and new layers into the industry, where we need to open up that flexibility and agility in ways of working. And I would say I am the biggest fan of experimenting and the queen of pilots, where I always want to, there's something more, or there's something that we can further look into, which I think in this digital environment is something we need to continuously do. It's something that has to continuously evolve, because there is fundamentally so much opportunity. Like, we can see, on a weekly and a monthly basis, new apps are coming out, new visions are coming out, and like, it's so hard to keep up with it already. So to keep and foster this team culture is still super important.
Yeah, it is. And I like that you also mentioned that flexibility, because that's something that I hear a lot about from my colleagues also around companies. Usually, we used to live in a world where you work at a job and that's all you do, and you have your fixed times and your amount of work that you have to deliver. And I feel like we're in a time, like I'm like an in-between generation. I'm like one of the early generations, but I've been 10 years in the industry, also working for brands. So I see both worlds. And I think it's so important to, when you have new talent coming in, to let them have that flexibility to also explore next to their job. Because a lot of these creators jumped into Web3 and they're totally passionate about it. They're enthusiastic. They love and breathe it. And to cut that off and say, well, when you work for us, you can't do that, is a huge mistake, because it's such a win for a company too. If you have someone who just has that eager exploration side or explorer side in them, to let them also pursue it and to find a clever way of how to let them do it, and how both sides can also benefit from. I think that's also a really important point for leadership.
Absolutely. And I have to say, digital had to be the savior of COVID. I mean, a lot of companies, from my point of view, would have folded if we hadn't have been advanced in digital creation. We obviously, there's a lot of background work, and we work tirelessly to try and get like ranges and collections to the finish line. But when, we were in the thick of it, we really could stand up and say that digital creation, the tool that we can leverage, that can take us okay, that is worst case scenario, something horrible that has happened in the planet. But look how many open doors this like brought us through, because it realized, you know, traditional type companies, that people worked at home for 2 years. You know, people were educated for 2 years. Yes, there were some gaps, but the world kept moving, clothes kept getting produced. So I think for me, definitely that is something that was super critical to the digital landscape during the COVID period.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so talking about how this new way of working is also changing over time, and how this digital product creation layer that we're adding to our processes also, yeah, like you said, made us as brands more resistant also to, you know, happenings like COVID and stuff like that. So it actually proved out a point pretty well there from what you said. So how do we actually now build value in this new way of collaborating within our teams? When we look at the traditional workspace versus the digital one, how do we really get the best out of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, to me, it was always in the aspect of what did it bring to the teams. For me, I am always a fan of work smarter, not harder. You know,
Yeah,
and it was really through that avenue of the space of digital creation where, yes, we are always going to be integral with craftsmanship and product excellence, but digital workspace gave us an environment to experiment. I mean, I seen it through the lens of digital pattern makers, where they had a platform where they could draft patterns, stitch them up, and already identify if something didn't sit right, or if they needed to tweak the pattern in some set, all before they either got a physical sample made or they sent it out to a supplier. That is something for me that is groundbreaking. I mean, the communication and the approach to right first time, when you look at it through a product development lens, was probably for me the biggest like light bulb moment,
yeah,
because I've been a cross team and someone calling from Asia sitting around different parts of the world looking at one asset, talking about like engineering suggestions, how you could make it more production friendly through the lens of design, that are going, oh, I would like to make this more sophisticated or more to the performance aspect that it needed to hit, from
yeah,
a pattern perspective, to make sure that it was ready for a production service, and then through the lens of a product developer to make sure the construction was correct. So like when you marry all of those layers together, you see something that is just phenomenal. And when I think about like how I drafted my career, you know, in the last 17 years, this is something that I don't think many of us could ever imagine. And, you know, we really, I think, are super privileged to be in this environment at the moment, because it's something I would say absolutely groundbreaking to the industry, but also to the world.
it is, because it has an effect on the world, right? I mean, the
Absolutely.
point that you mentioned, for anyone watching who's maybe not in the fashion industry or doesn't have that deep knowledge of digital garment production, you usually have a design process and you order different samples for like, I don't know, like an average like 6 samples before you're actually finished and you have your garment to sell. And you go through these different stages, and you send over the tech packs. It has to be produced in the factory. They send it back. You look at the garment. You say, "Oh, that print is off." You give your comments back. They sew another 2 weeks. You get it back as a package. So there's time wasted. There's resources wasted. The shipping, the garments itself that are wasted, and that's what you're mentioning. That all falls away. You can have this one file, this one single source of truth, and that's production correct, and you can do all these steps simultaneously instead of in a linear step. So no one has to wait for the other one to take their job. They can all work simultaneously on one product at the same time. And that's so good to hear that from you. I mean, it is groundbreaking, right?
Totally. And I mean, like, you and I both know we could both talk about this all night. We didn't even bring the layer of like sustainability and the impact of how it could make on the planet, by reducing all those samples that are needed, reducing the amount of time it takes for transportation of these samples, to reduce the amount of time it takes on a production line, or how much electricity is used,
You can go on and on that.
there are so many layers to this here. It really blows my mind. It's super phenomenal that we are living and breathing in this workspace.
That's so good to hear. A really important point that you also mentioned there. Definitely. I mean, you're joining us also as someone who has this leadership role in our industry at the forefront of this digital transformation, and you're like in the midst of it. So what I'd also love to hear from your point of view, how do we as leaders need to also develop, like in terms of leadership style, and how we also improve our digital skill sets moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think this is just how I am built. It's always staying up to date. What is going on in the industry? What are the current releases of software? But it's being around a team, that all have different layers of expertise to build something that really is very unique. And I think from this uniqueness, you really adapt your leadership style. And it's all for me about being agile, being flexible, being empathetic, because, we're all on a journey. Nobody woke up this morning and said, I have the answer end to end how this is going to work. We do a lot of pressure on ourselves today. And I think it's important when you go into the lens of leadership, especially when you work on pilots, agile behaviors, that you have this environment of a safe space. Like I mentioned earlier, it's okay to fail, but you also have a space to celebrate the wins and to also identify like people's strengths, also allowing them to openly stand up and say, I like this, I don't like this, I need help. And I think the more that we foster those behaviors, again, whether it's digital or whether it's in physical space, we will continue to push the boundaries of this digital ecosystem.
I love that. It's a mixture of so many ingredients, like you mentioned. It starts probably with the mindset and changing into an agile working environment. So I'm just summarizing a little bit up. And a new way of working, because of course we have fixed calendars. We still have, as a fashion industry, we can't be completely flexible and have our sprints as we do usually in agile work environments. But getting that mindset of what you said at the very beginning, also encouraging mistakes, get so many mistakes in as you can at the beginning. That's a totally new way of leading teams that's coming into our industry as well. And I mean, I have to say, like at the beginning, you also mentioned that, I think you said that for you, it was really important to bring that expertise on board, because of course, no one person knows it all, right?
Right.
And I think that really makes great leadership. It's not like not being a leader and saying, okay, I know everything, I'm going to bring people on board and tell them how to do stuff. But to acknowledge that I don't have to know it all, but I'm bringing on people that are better than me in their specific areas, right? That have the expertise when we're talking about avatar creation, when we're talking about digital fabric scanning, when we're talking about processes, engineering, developing applications. I mean, there's so much knowledge that we need. And that's what makes great leadership, knowing that you bring people on board that know things to a degree that's higher than yours. And I love that you mentioned that at the beginning. So cheers to you for that.
Oh, thank you. I think as well, when you hone down and peel the layers off that there, it's all about trust. I mean, every team that is successful is built on trust. And I think that's where you need to let these experts drive where they know, what they know, and how to build, marry it together with all of these different dynamics.
Absolutely. And what I love about, from what I can tell, what I think I can tell from your leadership style, this new generation of leadership, I can't stress enough, really needs to be really good at people skills and having the empathy. And I think that you also lead with a lot of kindness and trust, as you say. Those are so important skills for any leadership team leading through digital transformation. It's a different leadership style than we needed the last decade for sure. And I think you're right, spot on. And whoever's in your team, congratulations, because I think you're doing a really great job, and I'm sure everyone agrees.
So kind of you, but I have to say, I am just blessed to have one of the greatest teams in the industry. Every person there is there for a reason and plays a critical part to the success of what we do.
That's so great. See, it goes both ways. Definitely. Amazing. So with that said, I think we could head over and see if we have any questions. So we have quite a few. Let me just follow up. Wow. I mean, last time we just had a few comments. Now I have to just catch up a little bit. We have Catherine Schildmeyer joining us saying, hi, honestly, the best diverse interview fashion comes from Adidas. That's a super nice comment.
Really nice.
And then we have Stella Achenbach, who joined us. She's a big player in the Web3 industry, a leader, a female leader, also just pushing forward with new strategies. She has a question for you, Orla. So what are the most challenging parts of working in a big corporation such as Adidas?
I mean, to be honest, it's not like a big corporation. I would say whether it's a startup or a global company, every company has a challenge. I think it's not what the challenge is, it's how you tackle it. Everything, I am always saying this, there is a solution to every problem. There is something that we know, okay, currently is a roadblock that we face. If we build the right people, if we train them, if we give them the room to maneuver and ideate, there will always be a solution to any challenge.
Absolutely. Having that flexibility, like you mentioned, right, to also think out of the box and find solutions.
Totally. I think that is sometimes when we come up with our best ideas, when you are actually hit with a roadblock, that you really unpick it and really understand in that agile environment how to solve it, and you get the best ideas from those situations.
Yeah, and it leads you also in new directions, right? New paths. Super nice.
Yeah.
So we also had a comment from Catherine Schildmeyer. And did you know the industry in America only employs 600,000 designers? The job opening rates are so small. 70% of that is freelance work. So the industry really needs expansions between both 2D and 3D and technical. For sure. I think as a leader and also you, but also me being in contact with a lot of other brands, that's a huge problem coming up right now, finding the talent, getting them on board. So anyone who's out there going into the digital fashion industry, these are good times for you to actually jump on board, because the brands need you. They need your skill sets.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, we have a generation now that are coming through that bring a new dynamic to the way that we've been working in the past. And I think as soon as we bring these people in, we start to even broaden that digital platform.
Absolutely. Okay, so Stella has another question, another one for Orla. When it comes to having people work together in diverse teams, what are your top 3 techniques, tools you deploy to ensure they work well together? I think we touched on a few of them already.
We touched on a few of them. I mean, I'm going to be totally honest. Chocolate. I kill everyone with sugar, but no, like realistically, as I said, it's all about having people in a safe space. You know, no,
Trust.
nobody woke up with the right idea or nobody woke up with the solution. It's all about giving the environment to your team to foster that culture of ideation, to share a problem and to understand, you know, how to get there. It really means for me where our three techniques would be is open dialogue, education and upskilling, and just giving the space, as I said, but also for ideation.
Yeah, those are three really good points. I mean, especially the upskilling. It's never going to end, right? It's a constant thing. And it also gives the, especially people that are keen on learning more, it gives them also the appreciation and the space where they can also further develop themselves and, you know, learn new and evolve with the industry.
Absolutely. And I would also say as well, never ever forget to celebrate. I mean, I think everything that we achieve should always be a celebration. It doesn't matter the size of the impact that it is.
Yeah. Celebration is always good.
Totally.
So I'm just going through the comments here on the fly. One challenge is to have the dare to take decisions on digital samples. That is true, Stefan. What do you think about that?
I mean, yes, come on. Everybody knows the impact. You know, we touched on it for sustainability aspect, but when we talk about the craftsmanship, you know, there is always going to be a bond between digital and physical samples. Do we need the amount of physical samples? Absolutely not. Are there works on how we can leverage a smaller amount of physical samples versus giving an array of digital samples? Absolutely. And I think that is something that is definitely obtainable and something with a right strategy for any size of company can definitely be delivered.
Yep, well said. So we have another question from Catherine Schildmeyer. You're totally on fire. I love it. Keep them coming. So what are some of the light bulb moments you have seen teams have in the digital and in the 2D space?
I mean, there have been so many, I have to say. We have seen people, I mean, light bulb moments for me are always the partnerships and collaborations that I see between the digital and the 2D and physical space. I would say light bulb moments are when you're building an infrastructure where you have a roadblock and you build together like an MVP team that really slices the cake into that. And that's why I talk about embracing small wins, because they always lead up to the bigger prize, right? So I have an array of individual moments, but I think if I went through them now, you would be like, that's not such a big celebration. But when I think back on them and I think how each slice built the infrastructure, they all played a really important part into the whole project.
Oh, I love that. Yes. It's when you see the separate MVP topics or the separate modules that are going into this big strategy, it seems like the impact is not that visible. But like you said, when it comes together and you actually see the whole process and how it works together seamlessly, and the digital garment or the digital file goes through all those steps and it actually works, those are definitely super nice light bulb moments.
It's phenomenal. And I mean, when I think about starting the digital journey 6 years ago, when I think of like the first range that we brought to digital creation, it was quite robotic. And now, fast forward, we see avatars that do poses. We can see avatars in different environments. We can see clothing that can be fit for purpose, whether it's on an outdoor landscape or it's sitting in the gym. You know, these are things that really blow my mind, and the way that the technology progresses so quickly.
Yes, for sure. So we have another question from Gabriela Mendez. Hi from Mexico. Hi back there. That's a long way over the ocean. My question for Orla is, where do you find inspiration in the hard days?
And I want to say hello to Gabrielle because I'm her. And I would absolutely put this back to Gabrielle. It's meeting people like Gabrielle. We met over a coffee chat, virtual coffee chat as well, where someone that probably doesn't come from a digital background just opened up a dialogue that she was totally interested in the environment, and we started having conversations and dialogue. And when you meet people like this, you bounce off their energy. You know, you have conversations from different parts of the world where you've never met each other, but you are in an environment where you have maybe an interest in a shared topic. That's something that I really, I would say, vibe off. And like, I really embrace this. As a leader as well, it's super important that we continuously talk and upskill our people, but we also take that feedback and learn from that feedback as well. So yeah, it's all about the people that you meet, and it's all about learning from them as well, and their different environments, cultures, and how they hone in on digital creation.
So true. And you know, we the guys out there don't know about this, but we had this conversation before we started this. And that's exactly why I love doing this series. I told you, Orla, that every time I finish, I pack up here and I go upstairs to my hubby, and then I ask him, okay, well, how did I do? Give me some feedback. That's my first question. But I always come up there in such a good mood. Like, I'm energized, and it's the best part. This is my most fun project of my entire World of Mesh world, because I get to connect with you guys, and not only my guests, but also everyone out there adding these amazing questions and hearing and feeling the vibes of the industry. That's the best part. I love that you mentioned that, because I totally agree on that point. Super nice.
And I mean, like I said at the beginning, you can see your passion through this. The people that have passion in it, as I said at the beginning, it's so important when we continue to build this infrastructure that we have people with this passion, because this is what is going to drive it, and this is what's going to make it accessible for everyone.
Yep, that definitely gives you the drive to push it through too, because it's not just for the fun. There's a purpose behind it. That gives you the energies in those hard days. Super good answer. I love it. So what else do we have? We have 2 more questions coming up. So can technology drive production of material? Wait a minute. I'm reading this wrong. Driven production of material help in addressing sustainability in the fast fashion industry? So.
Absolutely. I mean, what I understand from this here, technology-driven production of material help addressing sustainability in the fast fashion industry. I think if we have a landscape for digitized materials, that we can have, I mean, the vision and the outlook of materials and digital asset, there is such a huge opportunity to step away from the amount of samples that we need. When we're talking about the fast fashion industry, there's something there that we need to build a landscape of what our criteria is to step away from fast fashion. And I think this is also to talk about new generations. People are very conscious about what they're wearing. I mean, we also see the metaverse as well into like virtually buying clothes. If that there is a step away from fast fashion, that is something that is definitely an avenue that needs to have continuous growth. Where I see material libraries, the outlooks the virtual hand feels that you can almost see from them is phenomenal compared to what I see it 6 years ago. So yes, there is huge potential in material digitized in production, and I would say anything that we can leverage through the digital lens that helps us step away from fast fashion is definitely something that we can continue to hone in on and grow.
Yes, and just to add on to that, the samples we mentioned before, if you're digitizing things in virtual, you don't have to pre-produce the fabric for those samples, and also all the leftovers, because that's a huge topic as well. I think we touched with that on that topic with Daja when she joined us. The fabric stocks are nuts. I mean, we could produce another 2 years without creating new fabrics, and continue our production of garments that we have currently. So that's just to give you an idea what material production amounts we have going on there.
Sure.
So yeah, so we're having more and more questions coming in. I'll take 2 more, and the other ones we can maybe address afterwards and continue in the chat, because I want to make sure that Orla has her time tonight still to relax. But I love that you guys are asking questions. Thanks so much for that. So we have another one from Daniel Andriessen. He's been a supporter from the beginning. Hi, Daniel. Love your questions. So hi, Orla. Thank you for the inspiring talk. Question: would a hackathon type of event be useful in corporate setting and or in a digital space?
100%. And I have come from an environment of hackathons. Marie probably also know as well. We are huge fans of it, and the environment of hackathons, I would say, is one of the most inspirational spaces that you can be in, because it's really blank canvas approach to a problem or a situation that needs to be addressed in a very agile and quick manner. So absolutely 100% supporter of that.
Yeah, because they got the agile mindset. They're coming from the technical industry that has implemented that way of working since years. That's their way of working. So that's definitely a good one. I also just skipped this one. I just want to get back to it. How will 3D printing affect the fashion industry?
I mean, there are huge opportunities with 3D printing. I mean, I've seen a lot of smaller scale startups that work on 3D printing where they engineer entire products. I think where we're at the moment, the scalability of that is still not there. But I would say, like, you see couture houses that have done runway shows with 3D-esque type printing models on the runway, compared to these small startups that are doing it. It definitely has an impact, but I would say for mass production, we're still not there on the scalability route. So definitely, I would say obtainable. I think it's just a matter of when and how we build to that there, because I would say there are still the aspects of traditional craftsmanship that is honed into the sense where you can get it at a value proposition, where when you look at it through a 3D printing lens, it's still quite expensive. So it's about the attainability of that production.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting to hear that from your side, because it is true. The scalability is really the crux about it. I don't know if you know about that, but my first startup that I did 2017, 2016 was 3D printed accessories. So I got this whole business plan going. I was ready to go, and I just found a market that wasn't ready yet.
Right.
A lot of people cannot really. They find it fascinating to see it, but the market has to also be ready to accept that. It's like when the iPad came out. The iPad was developed in, I think, the 70s. And it had its big hit when it came out. Was it the late 90s, beginning 2000s? So it took 20 years for the society or our for the people to be able to accept the product too. I think that's a big point about 3D printing. Yeah, the people have to be ready for it.
Totally. And, I've seen people in the industry and like crowdfundings and startups where they have this beautiful business model, but if someone received a 5,000 piece order, it would be like a huge detrimental impact to that business. So I think that's just the segue into how we can build into growing that there.
Absolutely. It's going to be coming for sure, I think. And I think it's going to be not after each other, but it's going to be a fluent next step of the digital world, the 3D printing. So, but that's a really cool topic we could get into as well. So I'll remember that in the back of my head. We have so many great questions still. I would love to click through them and maybe address them later in our chat. We have one from Alexandra also about AI. So maybe we can get back to these afterwards because I know we're already at 8 o'clock now. So guys, this is so amazing. All these questions that you have in here.
Hi, Sandra. I also know her as well. An amazing female entrepreneur that I know I will see more of in the future.
And it's so good to see that we have the right people watching as well, right? This is not just random people joining because they're interested. This is our industry tuning in here. And we appreciate each and every one of you guys joining in. So thank you so much for all these amazing questions. I see a lot of thank yous too. Thank you guys. It's been amazing having you on. And yeah, we also have a footwear asset question here, but we're definitely going to get back to that in another session as well. So thank you, Tarindu, and everyone else who still adds some questions. With that, I think we could end the session for today. We have so much valuable content, and this has been such a juicy session. Thank you so much, Orla, for joining us and for sharing your views and your best practices and your views on our industry. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
I am so privileged, and thank you so much for inviting me. It has been great to see all of the people that are tuned in, and thank you for the questions. Marie and myself will get back to them. Please continue what you're doing, Marie. It is such a great journey that you're taking us all on. And Marie promised that the next speaker series would be an Aperol cocktail speaker series. So I will definitely be tuned in for that one.
Okay, so you guys heard it. Next session, make sure you have your Aperols ready because we're all going to cheers and have our drinks or whatever you enjoy. I love that idea, Orla. Thank you so much for bringing that in. That's so... This is exactly what I'm looking for, your ideas, because you guys are going to be shaping this as well. So that's going to be a theme for our next session. Thank you so much for that input.
Great.
Okay. So with that said, I wish you guys, I mean, our German friends, we have a holiday tomorrow. I'm not even sure if it's an international holiday. I think it is. Anyway, wish you guys a fantastic week. All the best. And we'll see you guys next month with our next episode. Bye.
Take care.